Something we've talked quite a bit about is how MAGA defines itself by, is identified by their loyalty to and dedication to one person, right? It's not so much a comprehensive policy set of beliefs, but instead this loyalty to Trump, a personality cult. And a lot of that is premised on the idea that Trump has this unique strength. He's a strong man, you might say. This unique resilience. And by the way, we are in the home studio today, giving the guys a well-deserved day off. So that's why it looks like this. But this strength that they perceive Trump to have is obviously not what they believe it to be. And right now we're seeing something quite to the contrary. A level of weakness in his character playing out publicly that is shocking those around him. And this is something we've been following over the last few days extensively, but the reason I keep following up on it, and then we'll get into an interview that connects to this, but is because of how pressing of an issue for his campaign this has become. The fact that he can't just have what a lot of other politicians have dealt with, which is discipline, resilience, strength in their campaign through even political downturns. Even when things look rough, it's not as obvious that you're a leader or you're not based on the polling. You still stay dedicated to running an effective campaign. But the second, in this moment, the second that he started to lose his political standing a little bit because of the shakeup on the other side, he started to spiral out of control. That's not strength. And that's led to some stunning reporting. We've been looking at it this week, but to continue on that, and then like I said, we'll get to some clips of him in the interview everyone's talking about. But Raw Story reports triggered Trump trapped in mental health spiral as campaign panics, according to one of their analysts. Vanity Fair reporting Republicans think Trump is having a nervous breakdown over Kamala Harris. And it says that he's missing Joe Biden. We've noticed that. And then Time Magazine saying the takeaway from the big Elon Musk interview, that was a disaster of all disasters, we'll get to it, is that Trump is panicking. And then you do have Harris, but we'll skip over that for the sake of time, trolling Trump on Truth Social over that. And then the New York Times did this bombshell piece titled Inside the Worst 3 Weeks of Donald Trump's 2024 Campaign. I was seeing somebody say that this is one of the most bumpy rides, most politically perilous times since he entered the political scenes. That's how rapidly things are slipping away from him. People around the former president or former and would-be president see a candidate knocked off his bearings, says the New York Times, disoriented by his new contest with Kamala Harris and unsure of how to take her on. And this is the reporting that I referenced yesterday, him calling Harris childish and offensive names in private and lashing out at donors, getting his aides to send angry texts to donors and all sorts of wild things, leading to those around him, the sources feeding a lot of this information to outlets are loyalists around him saying, we don't know what's going on. He's breaking down. We don't know why he's going out publicly and saying the things he's saying and indicating how panicked he is. My wording, not theirs, but that general idea. And a part of me feels like, yeah, he's probably crazy to be around him right now. But the other part is, yeah, this is sort of what you signed up for. So live with it. So again, and then I'll show you this really interesting compilation put together by Jon Stewart showing how disoriented Trump is about running against Harris. But again, I think a takeaway is that someone who was more in control of themselves, almost more mature, who was stronger, to use that term, would be able to be frightened, sure, by Harris's surge, but then readjust, refocus, come up with a good campaign message against her. You still have some time, and then run a campaign. But the second that he's not the leader, he's panicking. It's so interesting. Take a look at this. This is a comparison between what he was saying about Biden and what he's saying about Harris, showing he can't come up with things on the spot.
Joe Biden is a failed president. She was a failed vice president, the worst president in the history, the worst vice president in history. He is incompetent. She's incompetent. Everything he's touched has been bad. Everything she's touched has turned to bad things. She can't talk. She can't talk.
In many ways, he's worse than Bernie.
She's worse than Bernie. Low IQ. He's a low IQ individual. She happens to be really a low IQ individual. She really does. She has a very...
It's so interesting because they've been attacking Harris over her not delivering unique enough speeches compared to her previous ones at different events, which is sort of a normal thing in politics. You have a standard speech you deliver at a bunch of rallies back to back. Trump does that for much of his speeches as well. And they've been saying that's proof that she couldn't go off the cuff or be unscripted. But Trump, when he's, I guess you would say, more on a political message, it's identical to Biden. He's not adjusting to make it land better for Harris. But when he does go off script and does think of new things, it's questioning her biracial identity. So that's what's freaking out the aides. So I guess they're thinking, Trump, just stay on what you were saying about Biden, I guess, whether or not it's an effective line of attack. So again, a level of panic, of unraveling that leads him to say, hey, maybe what can save my campaign is doing a 2.5-hour interview on Twitter Spaces with Elon Musk. And if you've already seen, because everyone's covering this, the different clips here, do stick around because we'll have a fun time reviewing it. But a disaster, the tech problems that happened in a lot of these other situations, like the DeSantis very prominently campaign launch, also happened here. I don't know why a guy who's supposed to be such a genius with technology fumbles every time he has a major event like this when it's just audio. That's not the most complicated thing I wouldn't think to stream audio to people. But here was the first moment that raised a lot of eyebrows.
She's terrible. But she's getting a free ride. I saw a picture of her on Time Magazine today. She looks like the most beautiful actress ever to live. It was a drawing. And actually, she looked very much like our great First Lady, Melania. She didn't look like Camilla. That's right. But of course, she's a beautiful woman. So we'll leave it at that, right?
So I don't know who Camila is. I genuinely don't know who Camila is. But if he's talking about Vice President Kamala Harris, then he must be referring to this Time Magazine cover. Her moment, it's described on this. And he's saying that she looks like Melania Trump there. And I guess that's what I think of it, okay? Huh? What's going on? And then you have this.
Possible.
Yes.
So this is like talking to an NPC, so it's just impossible.
Well, but think of it. We need a man or person who's unbelievably sharp in order to stop all the nuclear danger and all the dangers.
Okay, let me say a couple things as we continue through this. First off, why? In this day and age, why are we having to listen to two low quality, talking through a can and a string voices, audio for such a high profile interview? And you have tech problems. Then Elon Musk, by the way, blamed it on a cyber attack. But why is that something we have to be subjected to? That's number one. Number two, a lot of people have been commenting on Trump having a lisp and slurring. He does slur normally at certain times in his speeches, so that could be coming through and be authentic. I gotta be transparent with you. It's funny to imagine, Trump all of a sudden had a lisp and was slurring. I'm pretty sure that was a tech thing, because I've heard this in other X Spaces things. Just the technology is not there for some reason, and so it causes one's voice to sound weird. So even though it is funny to see it described that way, we can be accurate and say it probably wasn't that.
Possible.
Yes.
So this is like talking to an NPC, so it's just impossible.
Well, but think of it. We need a man or person who's unbelievably sharp in order to stop all the nuclear danger and all the dangers that
It does sound like he's really slurring.
I'm talking about. And I got along with all these. I got along with Kim Jong-un. We had dinner. We had everything. And he really liked me, and I got along with him really well. By the way, he's the absolute boss over there. A lot of people said, "Oh, do you think he really?"
Yeah, that's for sure.
Let me tell you, I saw things that you don't want to know about. He is the boss. But we had a good relationship, and he doesn't like Biden. He considers him a stupid man. He said he's a stupid man. Well, at least he speaks his mind. But in this country, you're not sort of allowed to say it. But I guess you are. You should be allowed to say it if it's true. But we need smart people, and we need people that have an ability to lead. And
I don't understand. You're interviewing a former presidential candidate. Just give him a microphone, okay? Do it. Record a podcast, publish it later. We don't care. It doesn't have to be live. This is a disaster. I don't like hearing this. Or, with all the technology we have at our disposal, the way you're looking at me right now and you hear my voice, it's really complicated, but it's nicer than what you're hearing there. They could have set up a TV interview and broadcasted that live. I'm sure you could figure out how to stream that on Twitter. But instead, it has to sound like one flip phone calling another flip phone and someone recording it with the jankiest microphone. Goodness gracious. Because then it is causing his voice to sound thinner than usual. That lispy sound, the slurring, which again, I'm willing to admit is not him actually just having a total mouth collapse in its functioning. But it's obviously going to set up those sorts of conversations, and it does make it miserable to listen to. Not to mention the substance of what he's saying. If you're going to do such an interview, why do we have to go back into all the things we hear him say at every single speech? Oh, Kim Jong-un, he actually really, really loves me. All of our enemies really, really love me. I wonder why. It's so strange. And he doesn't like Biden. How is that even a case for you? I don't understand why he thinks that's good for him. What I was told from Trumpers was that the world's so afraid of him. They hate him so much that they'll stay in line. But Trump's constantly saying he should be president because Kim Jong-un loves him, and Kim Jong-un does terrible, terrible things to hold on to his power. And that's so awesome. It's so cool. You would not believe what I've seen, okay? Very bizarre. And here, Elon Musk attributed the tech issues to Marjorie Taylor Greene was listening to this. Isn't that fantastic? You can see on this screen. Attributes it to a cyber attack.
But all of our data lines, like basically hundreds of gigabits of data, were saturated. We think we've overcome most of that, and so it's now time to proceed. But as this massive attack illustrates, there's a lot of opposition to people just hearing what President Trump has to say.
I know this segment's going to get way too long if I actually review every one of these clips in depth and respond in the ways that I've wanted to or that I would want to, but even just think about that, how absurd that is. I get that Elon Musk clearly, in many of the things he's done, is an intelligent guy. And on some things, it's shocking how little he's able to critically think about certain things. How could it make sense that the deep state or the media or whatever he's thinking, the left, they just don't want anyone to be able to hear what Trump has to say? As what we're observing now is an election cycle where the criticism overwhelmingly is Trump gets way too much airtime. For example, he was doing a press conference and Harris was doing a press conference. All of the networks broadcasted the Trump one so he could just live for hours on end, and not the Harris one where she was delivering fact-based and much more compelling commentary. Would that be happening? Would that be the media ecosystem if this conspiracy to suppress Trump's voice were really taking place? Probably not. Here Trump says, get rid of the Department of Education.
I want to close up Department of Education, move education back to the states, where states like Iowa, where states like Idaho, not every state will do great, because states that basically aren't doing good now. You look at Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. He's
onto that. Of course, Democratic states often fare better. I was about to say on education, and then I should contextualize it with on almost all of the metrics. When you average together the group of blue states and the group of red states. But that's one of the reasons I want a Department of Education, so that we can make sure, even in states where they refuse to make proper investments in education, often red states, even in states that are failing their students in many ways, I want us to figure out ways to still uplift those students. And if the Department of Education is one of the ways we can do that, then let's do it.
Look, there's nobody that feels worse about the Ukraine situation than I do, because I know it would have never happened. I know Zelensky. He was very honorable to me, because when they went with the Russia hoax and they said I had a phone call with him, he said it was a perfect phone call. It was a great phone call. He could have grandstanded and, said, he was very threatening. He said, no, it was a very nice phone call. I called him up to congratulate him on his win, and you end up getting impeached, because these people are lunatics.
Yeah.
I was talking about the difference from the people within and the enemy.
I think you left out a little part there as to what happened when you called him.
On the outside. In many cases, the people from within are more dangerous for our country than the Russians and the Chinas. If you have a small...
So all the things we've heard before, Russia's invasion of Ukraine never would have happened, addressed that a billion times. The left in the United States, which is what he's saying, some of the members of the left, they're actually more dangerous than these authoritarian governments across the world, because if you really think about it, that iron fist rule is so awesome, as Trump believes. And then this was said. This was bizarre.
This cutter. I mean, I look at what you do. You walk in and you just say, you want to quit? They go on strike. I won't mention the name of the company, but they go on strike, and you say, that's okay, you're all gone. You're all gone. So every one of you is gone, and you are the greatest. You would be very good. Oh, you would love it. But, if you look at Argentina...
That's a crazy thing to say, to admit. That you engage in unlawful union busting? Just publicly saying that? Oh, it's so great. Elon, you go in there and you say, I'll fire you all if you engage in something you have the right to do.
The United Auto Workers Union has filed federal labor charges against both Trump and Musk after the X interview last night. The UAW claims that Trump and Musk threatened and intimidated workers who engaged in protected activities like strikes.
Right, and then it plays the clip. So that was the news that came of it. UAW actually suing there. So there's more, but you get the point. The takeaway for me was, it's 2.5 hours of, if you're a viewer of the show, stuff you've heard constantly when we've gone over Trump's speeches and his normal press conference rants and rambles. And what was so strange was seeing the right-wing reaction, which was this.
Oh. You are muted, by the way.
That was amazing, ladies and
gentlemen. That was nuts.
We are muted because we don't want to talk. We don't even want to laugh over stuff like this. We learned the hard way to not let it rip when two guys like Elon Musk and Donald Trump are talking together. That was the most fascinating conversation I have ever heard in my entire life.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
But what? And I'm just not that interested in it, which is why I have like 16 clips pulled up and I just played those. You go. You have fun. You want to go listen to it? Please do. Please do. Get the full context, because you didn't get it in this segment. I'm telling you that for sure. Go watch it and see if that's a justified reaction, because from what I tuned into, I would not say that was the most fascinating conversation I've ever heard in my entire life, as Benny Johnson, a right-wing pundit there, said. Yikes. My point is, this type of interview it just doesn't seem to be something that can move the ball down the field. He still, and this is what you'll observe if you do go listen to it, has not figured out what an effective campaign message is against Harris. Meandering around, bizarre insults, etc. She's not smart. And the reason I wanted to make this less so about the Musk interview, because that's being just covered a gazillion ways by everyone and wasn't that interesting to me, but connect the concept and start with this is his moment, I guess, or it was his moment, with admittedly a lot of ears on this conversation, a lot of people listening, to see if he can bring out a new, better message against Harris. And he failed miserably. And so what we're going to see, hopefully, is Harris continuing to surge. And that, I guess, is going to cause him, in private and in public, to continue spiraling and having, as some are calling it, a nervous breakdown. Let me know what you thought of that in the comments. If you want to get extra content daily, you can do so by clicking the join button below.